Alright, this lesson covers 8.6 polynomial inequalities. Alright, so the first one, they want me to solve the following inequality. Now they're giving me these in parentheses. X minus 3, x plus 1 is less than 0. Now, I'm going to solve this like that's an equal sign. Now since these are already factored, and I got a 0 on that side, I'm just going to set each of these factors equal to 0 and then solve for the x. So here we add 3. I get x equals 3. Here I would subtract 1 and get x equals a negative 1. Now these are my points that I'm going to use on my number line. So I'm going to make me a little number line. So let's see, negative 1 would be on the left side and 3 would be on the right side. So I always pick a test point. So since 0 is in between negative 1 and 3, I'm going to use a test point of 0. So what I do is I put a 0 back in for these x's and see if this is a true equation. If it's true, then my interval will shade in between here and I'll set up my interval notation. If it's false when I check that 0, then that means the outsides will shade and I'll set up my interval by that. So let's test 0. So this is what we're doing. We're testing 0, and I always test 0, and then I shade according to what I get. So I'm going to put a 0 into that equation up there. Alright, so 0 minus 3 is negative 3. 0 plus 1 is 1. And that has to be less than 0. So let's see, negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. Is that less than 0? That is true. So that means since it's true for 0 and 0 is in between negative 1 and 3, I'm going to sort of shade this interval. Now, since it's less than and it don't have an equal sign on it, we're going to use curvy parentheses. So now my answer is pretty much going to look like this interval. It's going to start at negative 1 until I hit 3. And we're going to use curves once again because we don't have an equal sign under there. And that would be my final answer. Right, number 2, I got x squared minus 15x plus 44 has to be greater than 0. Now, you could do the quad on this. Make A1, B negative 15, and C 44. Use your quad program on the calculator, and that'll give you the two answers I'm looking for. But since I'm doing this on paper, I'm actually going to factor that and set it equal to 0. So x squared, I got an x and an x. Since that's positive 44, that means both of these will be negative like the middle. Remember, positive at the end means like signs, and they're always like the middle one. Now I need factors to 44 that I add to get 15. So you got 1 and 44, 2 and 22, 3 don't work. You got 4 and 11, 5 don't work, 6 don't work, 7 don't work, 8 don't work, 9 don't work, 10 don't work, and then I'm already back to 11. So the two numbers that equal 15 are 4 and 11. So I'll plug them in and then set them equal to 0 to see what I get. So here I'm going to add 4. So x is a positive 4. Here I'll add 11 and get x equals a positive 11. So let's set up that number line. So the first point I would hit would be the 4, and then I would go through and I would hit the 11. Now, notice, I'm going to test my 0, but 0 is going to be on this part of the graph before you hit to the 4. So if the 0 is true here, I shade this and I shade the other side, but I skip the middle. If the 0 is false here, then I don't shade that and I only shade the middle. So these will either shade the middles or they'll shade the two outer edges. Okay, so let's see what we're going to do. Let's put a 0 in for that equation. 0 squared minus 15 times 0 plus 44 has to be greater than 0. Well, that gives me 0 minus 0 plus 44 has to be greater than 0. So 44 is greater than 0. That is true. So since it's true where the 0 was located, I would shade this part right here. I would skip the middle, but then I would shade the other side. So see, before we only shaded the middle, but this one shaded the outsides. So remember, interval notation, since there's no equals, these will both be curves at these numbers. And then we're coming in from the left side at negative infinity until we hit the 4. We can't shade that part in the middle, so we're going union around it until we hit to the 11. And then from 11, it heads towards positive infinity. Okay? Alright, number 3. Now y'all, on that number 2 I just did, look, turn that calculator on. Clear, go to program, go down to quad, hit enter twice, and then I could have put in my 1, my negative 15, and my 44, and look at that, it gave me my answers of 11 and 4, and those were actually the solutions to the equation. Alright, number 3, x squared minus 2x minus 12 is greater than or equal to x minus 8. Alright, so to start this problem, I need a 0 on this side, so I'm going to have to subtract the x from both sides. Also, I'm going to have to add an 8 to both sides. Okay, so notice I got the x squared coming down. The negative 2x, and the x I'm subtracting gives me a negative 3x. The negative 12 plus 8 give me a negative 4, and all that's greater than or equal to 0 now. Alright, so let's see. I'm going to try to factor this and set it equal to 0. We got an x and an x. This time, since that 4 is negative, you got unlike signs no matter what. Now, I need to find factors of 4 that'll give me 3. So I got 1 and 4, 2 and 2. The one that'll give me 3 is 1 and 4. Now here's the rule. Since I got unlike signs, the larger number, which is 4, has the same sign as the middle. So my middle is negative, the 4 will be negative, the 1 will be positive. Alright, then set both them equal to 0. So here we subtract 1. I get x equals a negative 1. Here I would add 4 and get x equals a positive 4. So let's set up that number line now. I got a negative 1 over here, and I got a positive 4. This time 0 is in between negative 1 and 4. So since 0 is in between, I'm going to test it. If it's true, I'm going to shade that. If it's false, I'm going to shade the outsides. Alright, so I'm going to put my 0 into this original equation. 0 squared minus 2 times 0 minus 12 has to be greater than or equal to 0 minus 8. So 0 squared is 0, minus 2 times 0 is 0, minus 12 is greater than or equal to negative 8. So is negative 12 greater than or equal to negative 8? No, this is false. Negative 12 would be less than negative 8. So since it's false where the 0 was, I gotta shade the outsides. Now notice this time I had the greater than or equals. Since I had the equals in there, these will be brackets where the numbers are. So here we go. We start at negative infinity until we hit negative 1. Then we use our bracket. Then we union that from the 4 and we use a bracket until we hit positive infinity. And then once again on that problem, y'all could have used your quad and got them two numbers, okay? Alright, number 4. X squared is greater than 36. Alright, so I'm just going to set that equal to, the x squared equal to 36. Because really the quickest way to solve this is by square roots. So let's take square roots on both sides. Since I'm taking square root of a number, I'm going to use my plus or minus so that the square root of x squared is x. That's going to equal a plus or minus square root of 36 is 6. So I get x equals a negative 6, x equals a positive 6. So let's put that on our number line. Negative 6 will be on the left side. Positive 6 is on the right side. And I want to test 0, and 0 is in between negative 6 and 6. So let's see what we get. We put a 0, square that. That's got to be greater than 36. So 0 greater than 36, that is false. Because 0 is less than 36. So since it's false in the middle, I got to shade the outsides. Now look at this. Since there's no equal sign on this, it was just a greater than, I use curved parentheses. So I come in from negative infinity until I hit negative 6, union that from that 6 to positive infinity. So notice these answers got to have the same meaning as those number lines up there. Alright, if you did this on quad, I would do x squared minus 36 equals 0. I would use a as 1, b would be 0, c would be negative 36. It'll give you these two answers, and then you could set them in your interval. Alright, number 5. 4 minus x squared is less than or equal to 0. Alright, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to, since I only got the x squared in a number, I'm going to add the x squared to both sides so that I get 4 is less than or equal to a x squared. So watch this. I'm going to rewrite it as x squared is greater than or equal to 4. So I can rewrite it like that as long as it still opens facing that x. And so notice it still faces pointing to x with the opening part. Because at this point now I can take square roots of both sides, and I'll just set that equal, because I don't care about that symbol. I'm just going to use a test point in a second. So the square root of x squared is x. That's going to equal plus or minus square root of 4 is 2. Now, you could have done this with the quad. I'd have rearranged it. I'd have had a negative x plus 4 less than or equal to 0. And I'd have used, that's an x squared, so that a would have been a negative 1, b would have been 0, and c would have been 4. Notice, whenever you're missing these x terms on these, you got to put a 0 for the x term. Alright, you punch that on quad, it would have gave you your two numbers. Alright, so I know I got, what, a negative 2 here from one of these, and I got a positive 2. So remember, that's my x equals negative 2, x equals positive 2. So 0, once again, is going to be in between negative 2 and 2. So let's put a 0 in up here and see what we get. 4 minus 0 squared has to be less than or equal to 0. Well, 4 minus 0 is less than or equal to 0. Look at that. 4 minus 0 is 4. Is that less than or equal to 0? No, that is false. Which means I can't shade where the 0 is, and I'm going to shade the outsides. Now remember, this one has the equal sign on it, so we got to use brackets. So that it comes in from negative infinity up to negative 2 bracket. Now notice, infinity always uses the curves. Alright, let's union that from, what was my other number, 2, and it keeps going all the way to infinity. Alright, number 6. 30x minus 225 minus x squared is less than 0. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is put them in order. I'm going to put the negative x squared plus the 30x minus the 225 less than 0. Now, we don't like the x squared term being negative, so we're going to divide everybody, and I mean everybody on both sides, by negative 1. So that makes that a positive x squared minus 30x plus 225 less than 0. Alrighty. Now, y'all remember, since I divided by negative, shouldn't y'all be flipping that around? Y'all can't let me do this and not flip it around. Anytime we divide by negative, we gotta flip that around. Alright, so I'm going to factor this one. But you could solve this one by quadratic formula. A is 1, B is negative 30, C is 225. Okay? Alright, so we got an X and an X. That's positive, so both of these are negative like the middle. Factors of 225, that'll give me 30, are 15 and 15. So now, since these are repeating factors, I'm just going to set X minus 15 equal to 0 and solve it by adding 15 to both sides. And I get X equals 15. Alright, so since we only got one number on my number line where that 15 is, since I only got one number, that's going to be the only place where this is not true. So, it's not going to be true. So what I do is I'm going to skip that point, but everything else on here will be true. Okay? Because remember, it's not less when it's 15, it equals 0 when it's 15. And since it equals and it's not less, we can't include that number. So, you would go from negative infinity to 0, union around that 0, and go to positive infinity. So once again, since it only had one number, you only exclude that number from your answer. Alright, last problem, y'all, number 7. X squared plus 25 is less than 8x. Alright, so I need a 0 on that side, so let's subtract 8x from both sides. Now notice, no like terms over here, so I'm just going to put them in order. X squared minus 8x plus 25 has to be less than 0. Alright, so let's see if we can factor that. Let's see, factors of 25 that give me 8. Let's see, the only thing I can get is a 1 and 25, 5 and 5. Those don't give me an 8. So since this does not factor, and we get real number solutions, this is what we call a no solution. And to write that answer, we do what we call the empty set. Okay? So a 0 with a line through it means no solution. Okay? Alright, that is this lesson. Good luck.